Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so incredibly pumped to be your teacher for this session. Look, if you're in the 8th grade right now, you're at this pivotal point in your life where you're really starting to figure out what actually matters. You know, what's genuine versus what's just, well, for show. Today, we're going to dive into a massive foundational truth from the Bible. We're going to break down the absolutely crucial difference between having a genuine, inward faith and just showing off outward signs. So grab your notebook, get comfortable, and let's get right into it.
To kick things off, I want you to think about a quick question. Picture your school's basketball team, or, maybe the debate team. Which comes first? Actually earning your spot on that squad through hard work and skill, or just wearing the team jersey? It's a no-brainer, right? You can't just buy a jersey, throw it on, and magically become part of the official roster. The reality of making the team always precedes, or comes before, the outward symbol of the uniform. The uniform just lets everybody else know what's already happened behind the scenes. Keep that sports jersey metaphor tucked in your mind, because it hits the nail on the head for what we're learning today.
So that brings us right to our first section, Faith First, Signs Later, looking specifically at Romans chapter 4.
Okay, so we're going to apply that jersey metaphor directly to the Bible. Did Abraham get a physical sign first, or did he have faith first? Let's break down the two main concepts we're dealing with here. First up, we have the heart, and this represents genuine faith. On the flip side, we have a signpost, which represents circumcision, the physical sign God gave to Abraham. Think about driving down the highway, right? When you see a huge sign for a city, that sign is not the actual city itself. It just points to the reality of the city ahead. In the exact same way, circumcision was literally just a signpost, pointing to the reality of the faith that already existed deep inside Abraham's heart.
Moving right along to Section 2, Abraham's timeline of righteousness.
If you've got your Bibles handy, and I highly encourage you to open them up, flip over to Romans chapter 4, verses 9 through 12. Here the Apostle Paul is basically playing detective. He's laying out the exact chronological sequence of events in Abraham's life to prove a huge point. Because guys, timing is literally everything in this passage. Let's walk through this timeline together. Point 1, Abraham believes God. He trusts him completely. Point 2, because of that belief, Abraham is counted righteous. God basically says, "You are right with me." Now, both of these things happen before anything else. Then, way later down the line, we hit point 3. Abraham is circumcised as a physical sign. This completely definitively proves that Abraham was counted righteous long before the physical act ever happened. His inward faith made him right with God, not the outward sign.
Which brings us to Section 3, the purpose of the sign.
Now, you might be sitting there wondering, well, if the outward sign didn't save him and it didn't make him right with God, why on earth did God ask him to do it at all? Like, what was the actual purpose? That is a fantastic question. And as an 8th grader, learning to think critically, that's exactly the kind of question you should be asking. Let's read our memory verse for the day to find the answer. Romans 4:11 says, "And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of the faith which he had while still uncircumcised." Check out those words, sign and seal. Think of a seal like a heavy wax stamp on an official royal letter, or, a notary stamp on a legal document today. The stamp doesn't write the letter, it just proves the letter is authentic. God was simply stamping his official approval on a faith that Abraham already possessed. So, what kind of faith are we actually talking about here? Let's get a clear definition. Genuine faith is faith that trusts God, surrenders to him, and obeys him. It totally begins in the heart, but it always responds with action. True faith is never empty, and it never just stays hidden away. I mean, if you really trust someone, your actions are going to show it, right? Abraham's faith wasn't just some fuzzy, warm feeling inside. It was a gritty, heartfelt trust that actively responded to God with radical obedience. Let's transition over to Section 4, a family of faith. Okay, so why does this ancient timeline, a story about a guy who lived thousands of years ago, matter so much for the rest of the world, and especially for you and me today? Well, it matters because it completely rewrites the rules on who gets to be a part of God's family. It means God's family isn't just some exclusive club for people who follow a specific set of physical, outward rules. Because faith came first, Paul tells us that Abraham is the father of all who believe. And that includes both Jews and Gentiles. A Gentile is simply anyone who isn't Jewish, which happens to be most of us. This teaches us that Gentiles do not need the physical sign of circumcision or all the outward rules of the Old Testament law to belong to God's family. We only need one thing, faith like Abraham's. We just need to believe, trust, and surrender to God. And honestly, that completely levels the playing field for everybody.
And finally, let's look at Section 5, the godly learner philosophy.
I want to take this profound theological truth and apply it directly to your daily life right now. We've been talking a lot about how inward reality is far more important than outward appearance. Well, that exact same principle applies to your education. Here at HeroesMart Academy, we believe deeply in the godly learner philosophy. We purposefully intertwine biblical morality with education because honestly, education without morality can actually hurt people. Just think about every great supervillain in a movie. They're almost always brilliant geniuses, right? But they completely lack morality. Your knowledge and intelligence should help you make wise, God-honoring choices, rather than just making you more capable of doing whatever you want. We absolutely want you to pursue academic excellence, but always while keeping your heart centered on truth.
And the cool thing is, the Bible actually guarantees a reward for this kind of focus. Romans 8:6-7 teaches that keeping the mind spiritually minded leads to life and peace. Let's be real for a second. Middle school can be insanely stressful. You've got tests, homework, friendship drama. It can cause a lot of anxiety. But true, lasting peace, that doesn't come from just getting an A on your math test. It comes from keeping your mind spiritually centered on God's wisdom while you tackle those studies. When your inward reality is totally surrendered to God, your outward academic life is going to be filled with so much peace.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a final, pretty challenging question. As you navigate the 8th grade, are you going to choose to be just a capable student, someone who just wears the outward jersey of good grades, or will you choose to be a God-honoring learner whose heart actually belongs to Him first? Just remember Abraham. The genuine inward faith always comes first, and the outward signs naturally follow. Keep your mind centered on God, His truth, His wisdom, and on making righteous choices, and just watch how He uses your education for His glory. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep learning with a godly heart.